Welcome to episode 1 of Above the Break, a basketball podcast on the Ball Institute Network. We're inaugurating this on Tuesday, November 11th, and if you want to be part of the podcast, part of these live stream podcasts, you can either come to Twitch, twitch.tv/AhanR every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, or watch the shows later on our YouTube, youtube.com/@BallInstitute. And if you want all Ball Institute content, betting, fantasy football, projections, etc., join our Discord, wap.com/ball-institute. But every Tuesday, I'm here with my co-host, Bobby Stanley, every Tuesday to talk about some basketball, talk about the NBA. And we usually have games on Tuesday nights as well, so I'm going to stick around on stream after the shows on Twitch to talk some betting as well. But, Bobby, it's so nice to have a scheduled podcast with you because we've been on a couple podcasts together, but it's a little different knowing that I get to talk basketball with you every single week in front of an audience.
That's cool. I appreciate you.
I think this dude jammed in our first episode. Okay, now you're fine.
I'm good now?
Yes, you're good now.
No, man, thank you for asking me to do the show with you. And like I said, my friends don't want to argue NBA with me anymore, and I'm glad you wanted to, and someone who's as passionate and watches as much NBA as you do. So thank you for having me on. I'm excited. And this is a weekly thing, and I watch, just like you, probably an amount of basketball in the evenings, bounce around from team but kind of giving you my feedback and give you some background from me. I love the dynamic between us, man. There's a bit of an age difference. There's we're both East Coast guys, so that's some similarities. But I think you're going to get some good perspectives from the both of us.
Yeah, and we've talked about basketball like a lot in the past. We've written for the same company. We've talked about basketball just when no one was watching. And I know that we disagree enough that it's going to be entertaining. In addition to sort of informative for the people who watch our show to keep up with the NBA. Today, I mean, the agenda is so random. I'm just excited to talk about some general basketball, and we're coming off like one of the best nights in the NBA in recent memory because we had multiple game winners last night. We had Cade trying his best to put up 50 shots and still not score 40. He eventually got to the 46-point mark, but I want to start the show the way we start like a lot of our shows, which is I'm going to give you a blind ranking, and our video editor, Andy, is watching live as well. Andy loves these because he gets to edit, and it's a nice one to edit. But I'm going to try to stump you on this one. There's a theme, and for those of you who don't know how blind rankings work, don't be afraid. Bobby also did not know how blind rankings worked until this morning. This is his first attempt at it. I'm going to give you 5 NBA teams as of this season. All you got to do is rank them 1 through 5 without knowing what comes next. I don't know if you'll pick up on the theme, but we'll start with the Detroit Pistons.
Say it again. You give me 5 teams, and I'm ranking them
based on this season, like what teams you like how good they are. You would project them for this season, or you could create your own criteria if you want, but just rank these teams as of this season. So start with the Detroit Pistons.
7-2 Detroit Pistons.
9-2.
9-2. I'm sorry, 9-2. I don't know this, so I'm going to them third.
Okay, you putting them third. I think you kind of like, but I think you put them third, yes?
Third, correct. 3.
Third. All right. Next up, I'll give you my Miami Heat.
Oh, God. They're a hell of a regular season team. I think they're built for the regular season. I don't know how well they'll fare in the playoffs, but that's not what this ranking is. I would put them 4th.
Next, I'll give you your Los Angeles Lakers.
2nd. I will put them 2. I like what I'm seeing so far. I'm not overly concerned with the LeBron piece, which, we're going to talk LeBron ad nauseum at some point in this show. Maybe not today, but over the course of the season. It's going to be really interesting to see where this goes, but I'm putting LA 2. I like what I'm seeing so far through 10.
Dude, I feel like I always start with 3 when I'm on the side of ranking, and I always have 1 and 5 left open for the last 2 spots. That's what the position you put yourself in. Next up, I'll give you the Chicago Bulls. I feel like I know where this is going.
I actually just saw them live a week ago. I saw them play the Knicks in the Garden. I was pleasantly surprised with how well they are, but I'm with kind of how balanced it is and the jump that Giddey made. I like some of the transition stuff. Pat Williams, we always hope he makes the jump. I'll put them 5.
Put them 5, and that leaves your number 1 spot open. This cannot be a better segue. Your number 1 spot is open for the San Antonio Spurs. Are you happy with where you rank them 1 through 5?
Yes. I mean, if San Antonio was 1, obviously it's a good segue to the topic I wanted to talk about. I really like this Spurs team. I've been watching them a fairly amount for, they are a West Coast team, but they are in the middle of the country, so sometimes I'll catch some of the 8 o'clock tip-offs. I saw them last night against Chicago. I really like this Spurs team. And the wrinkle of De'Aaron Fox coming back, it's going to be interesting for the rest of the squad. I think they finally have a real roster. They're that sheer of what they were between the bench and the starters. They add a Luke Cornett. They add a Kelly Olynyk. Obviously, they drafted Dylan Harper. I really, really like this team. And I guess we're going to talk about their ceiling next. But 1 through 5, I went Spurs, Lakers, Detroit, Miami, and then in Chicago 5. And I feel good about that. I think I aced this, actually. I thought I was going to use the Academy at the end.
I actually think you did a really good job. Yeah, I mean, the theme was basically just like teams that were outperforming kind of where they were projected preseason by Vegas. It's kind of a loose terminology. There's no exact metric I went by here, but Detroit 9-2, like we all thought they would be good after what they did last year, but I guess 9-2. I mean, they're probably not going to be at this win rate the whole season, but they're the 1 seed as of a quote unquote significant portion of the season. The Heat are a 7-4. I think we can all agree that we did not have them as the 3 seed at any point this season. The Lakers, I don't think anyone should be surprised that they're off to a good start, but there were obviously concerns around the Lakers entering the season, and the fact that except for that Hawks game, they've looked like one of the best teams in basketball to start the season. They're kind of in that mix. And then the Bulls are just, I'm waiting for their 8-game losing streak. It's going to happen at some point, but it hasn't happened yet. So credit to them. And then lastly, the Spurs. And I feel like I made a tweet when they traded for De'Aaron Fox. I'd have to go find it, maybe ask Andy to edit it in. But I made a tweet talking about the fact that De'Aaron Fox is not necessarily the best fit on every team, given the way he likes to score the basketball. He's a great fit for the Spurs in addition to already being a great player. He loves playing in transition the same way guys like Keldon Johnson and Stephon Castle do. And he is one of the most efficient scorers when he is working as a pick-and-roll ball handler. And to pair that up with Victor is just insane. And then, like you said, they made some underrated additions with Kelly Olynyk, who, by the way, I did not think in 2025 Kelly Olynyk would actually be part of a real rotation, but I'm happy for him that he is, because I've always been a Kelly Olynyk fan. But I think it brings the next question, which is, Bobby, are the Spurs a legitimate championship contender this season?
I are. It's unhealthy when Wembanyama can be the rest of this season. That goes without saying. I'm very curious how De'Aaron Fox plays into the fold of this. And I say that because I was watching Chicago last night, depending on when this comes out, the Chicago game on Tuesday night. Fox comes back. Castle's attacking the rim aggressively. And maybe that was the matchup because Chicago's more small ball than anything else. But actively attacking the paint kind of made Devin Vassell a little expendable. He's been quiet in the 2 games that Fox came back. So for our bettors out there, so his point totals, Fox is in the fold. But when I look at this team and I look at some of the advanced metrics, they're top 5 in plus minus, top 5 in net rating overall is what you like to see. 8 and through 2-10 games. I love their flexibility and adaptability, because what happens in the playoffs and the postseason is what kind of different lineups can you throw out there? Can they go double big with Cornette and Wemby? Yeah, they have that. Can they go small ball and Olynyk at the 4 and play on 5? Have that. So when you're talking about how they're going to match up against a Denver and against an Oklahoma City, they have different personnel fittings that I think can give these top 2 guys fits, or at least give them a run for their money. So they have some size, they have some flexibility. in the front court. And then they got these guards. If you look at Castle, Harper later in the season, and Fox, I think they can burn you a bunch of different ways. I like what the mini jump Keldon Johnson. When I say mini jump, I mean, yeah, he's at that 12-ish points a game, but he's efficient. I noticed like this team, and I'm curious if there's a move for them to make, and Vassell maybe being that expendable piece. But they're a contender for me, and I didn't know what to expect this early in the season. I think they're up there. I think they're third in the West.
And I think like the key for contention this year is that like we talked about a lot with baseball, but it's just like how if you like kind of ignore the Dodgers, like the rest of the league was like pretty wide open. But in basketball specifically, like I feel like it's the Thunder are still the number one team, but it is so much harder to repeat as champions in basketball for a number of reasons. And maybe we don't talk about all of them today. You know, there's injuries, but there's teams trying to scheme around beating the champions, et cetera, et cetera. It's just so much harder to repeat in the NBA. So for that reason alone, I think not only are the Thunder like, if they get eliminated early this year with all the injuries they've had to open the season, I wouldn't be surprised. But the Spurs, like to me, are the top candidate to eliminate the Thunder, just because obviously like they have the ultimate edge, which is Wemby, but also they have depth, just like OKC. Like we were talking about OKC being one of the deepest teams we've ever seen, let alone recently. And the Spurs have depth, so it's not like they're a Wemby and Fox and that's it team. Like Stephon Castle, to me, like he was my number one player of his draft class. I loved Stephon Castle as a prospect. And the fact that he's the third best player on the team, like that alone means I think the Spurs can match up really well against him. To me, like I love what you said about there needs to be a move made, because I think San Antonio is going to like, in my eyes, they're going to win at least one championship with Wemby. Like that's, to me, like that's a foregone conclusion. My concern with how early they can get to a finals has to do with twofold. Number one is they need to figure out which pieces are expendable. Like you said, like it might be Devin Vassell. But to me, like Jeremy Sohan is like a misfit on this team. And your like response, like it's lagging like once every few minutes. So I have no idea what you just said. So I'm going to keep talking until I figure it out. Like to me, like Jeremy Sohan like should be traded. Like he fits that like sort of Draymond Green mold in that system, in that like he can guard very well 1 through 4 and often 1 through 5, but sometimes an offensive liability. But people like forget that like Draymond in his prime, he was a shooter. He was an extremely great like IQ like pick and roll player as a pick and roll roller. To me, like Jeremy Sohan is the same offensive player pretty much that he was like 3 years ago. And to me, like we've seen what we've got from Jeremy Sohan, and I'm ready to like move on from him while they still can, so to speak, right? You can find wings that can defend at a high level 1 through 4. You can find bigs that can defend, maybe not at the DPOY level, but they have Wemby, so who cares if someone can be, a great rim protector. So to me, like Jeremy Sohan is like the easily like you should trade Jeremy Sohan as soon as you see that he has some value in the market. And to me, Stephon Castle should be untouchable. And maybe this is a hot take, but that third best player on a championship team is like probably the most underrated role in basketball, because in the playoffs, you need that third best player to play like a second best player. And Stephon Castle has that ceiling to do so. So for that reason, I think Stephon Castle is as untouchable to me as, the big two. So I view the Spurs team as a big three. And then the other thing I just wanted to bring up is like, we all know that Victor has potential to be the most skilled, maybe the best overall talent in basketball history. Like he has that in his range of outcomes, but also like, we got to be real. And until he starts improving on some of those weaknesses, like it's fair to be concerned about how easily he can be exposed in a playoff setting. And the reason we're excited about him is because it is so hard to expose him, but it's still possible. And just looking at his overall stats may not fully paint the picture. I mean, obviously he averages 26 points a game, 13 rebounds per game. The under 4 assists, I'm not really concerned about. Once the assists will come. He's a very good playmaker. He knows what he's doing when reading the court. But there is a physicality thing that I witness, when I watch him play, and it's the reason he sometimes gets into foul trouble. It's the reason he sometimes commits a lot of turnovers, right? And obviously, De'Aaron Fox coming in is going to take a lot of that pressure off. But to me, I need to see a leap from Wemby offensively where he's not turning the ball over as soon as he sees some physicality, as soon as he sees some pressure, because there are teams out there that know how to scheme against that. And to me, Bam Adebayo, for example, I use Bam as an example because I watch him every night and he can defend 1 through 5. If Bam Adebayo was guarding Victor one-on-one, which is what happened in that Spurs game, and gave Victor some problems, it can get super ugly in a playoff setting where he's seeing more physicality and more double teams and different sort of coverages. So to me, it's twofold. You got to keep Castle and you got to continue watching Wemby improve. He'll get there, but I'm not sure he's there yet this season.
And I think Phoenix did a pretty good job defending Wemby a couple games ago, where they bring the double, and then they had Booker kind of trailing the passing lane, and they knew where the ball was going with Wembanyama. But for him, his jump, we saw it last night again, Tuesday night against the Bulls. He's three. Just obscene to see something like this from someone who's 7'4", and it looks so fluid. On the flip side of that, he goes in the post, and it looks like prime Shaq. So we've never seen this level of dominance that close to the rim, and then that much fluidity, above the free throw line. So it's the sky's the limit. I agree with you on Sohan. He's the piece you move. I think Vassell is another one. I would love to see them bring in another 3-and-D guy, which is what the NBA's become. But how high of a ceiling of a 3 can you get if you move a Sohan and you move a Vassell? That's why they drafted, his name, the kid they drafted in the first round was it Arizona. Who the other first round pick for San Antonio this year?
Carter Bryant.
That's the mold of what you want. He may not fit the timeline of what this season could be for them. So you take a Sohan and Vassell, maybe you attach a pick, and you go get a guy, a legit 3-and-D guy, and now I have a Sasher, I have Castle, who he was going at Isaac Okoro last night, who I consider someone you don't pick on defensively. And he's going to make any smaller guard just get run over. So it was really impressive to see Castle. And I think very, very highly of Dylan Harper. Obviously, I'm a Jersey guy here, so Rutgers loved watching him. I think he's the future in tandem. Say when Fox kind of, in a year or two when we see some degradation on Fox, that big three is Castle. I mean, as the limit, it seems like we're pretty aligned here. Not much to disagree with when it comes to the Spurs.
Yeah, and I'm surprised I forgot to mention Carter Bryant because, that was one of my favorite draft picks of the year. And I kind of compared him to Aaron Gordon. And in the context of, wanting that third or fourth best player on a championship level team, Carter Bryant's not playing, and yet I still think that it's in his ceiling of outcomes to be the fourth best player on a Spurs championship team. So good call there.
I dig it. All right, man. Let's talk about my topic that I brought to the table. It's not it's not today centric. It has nothing to do with the NBA, but it got my wheels turning because I'm starting to hear a little bit of rumbling around the next year's draft. The kids coming out. There's it's a really good draft to have lottery picks. Sadly, the New Orleans Pelicans aren't going to have any. But I want you to predict Team USA in 2028. We could do a little worth guard shooting.
Yeah, so let's do this position by position. And I know we wrote our notes ahead of time. This is one of the segments where I see what you have aligned. We have a lot of disagreements here. So I'm curious what your thought process is. We'll start at point guard. How is it not when he eventually gets healthy? And oh, by the way, he might have a number 1 pick playing with him next year. Let's not forget about that. He's going to start earning even more respect if he gets an AJ Diabasna to play with him. But to me, Tyrese Halliburton was the best point guard in the NBA last year. I said this before they made their finals run. 2 years ago, I was calling him a top 15 player in the NBA when people thought that he wasn't even that good. I've been a Halliburton fan for a long time. I hope he makes that full recovery from his Achilles next season. And his game is not super dependent on athleticism anyway. It's about his brain more than anything. So pause if need be. But he can, him working with Drew Hanlon, who is, one of my favorite guys in the NBA community, and he's been proven to, help guys take leaps every single year. Like, I think Halliburton may not have reached his complete peak yet, and that's wild to say about someone who just tore their Achilles. But in 4 years, how is he in 3 years rather? How is he still not the best point guard in the NBA? I don't see the vision where he's not. So that's my starting point guard.
Full disclosure, out of sight, out of mind, playing completely. So you're right. I would agree with you. Tyrese Halliburton is going to be the starting point guard. It was when you asked me, you said, "Dude, how high were you when you wrote this?" It was not high. I'm not high right now. It completely slipped my mind that Tyrese Halliburton, because he's not playing. It's just that matter of fact. But no, he would be my starting point guard. He did not play much in Team USA's last run in 2024. We'll talk about a couple guys who are on the squad and some that I think make the jump. But no, we aligned on point guard. We don't need to.
I also want.
He'll be the.
I also want to say, like, me asking if you were high or not is actually more to do with what the other positions than you forgetting about Tyrese Halliburton. So at
those
shooting guard,
defend with the exception of someone else.
Okay. At shooting guard, I think we're fairly aligned here as well. I don't know if he'll be coming off the bench. Unlike Halliburton, this is a guy who actually is very dependent on athleticism. So in 3 years' time, who knows what happens? But Donovan Mitchell, to me, like, he's the best shooting guard in the NBA. You can make an argument that it's Booker, but to me, like, Donovan Mitchell, what he's doing to elevate the Cavs, like, we're going to talk about the Cavs more later in the episode, but, like, to me, like, the Cavs are potentially the best team in the NBA, and to me, like, Donovan Mitchell doesn't get enough credit for how much carrying he has to do on some nights to make that happen. Yes, they have a good roster, but a lot of that is because they're getting plays made by Donovan Mitchell. Like, nobody seems to talk about the fact that this guy's an elite playmaker. Like, that's like the part of his game that I enjoy watching the most. Obviously, he's a great athlete, great shooter, but to me, like, I hope he's healthy for a long time. His game is dependent on athleticism, so that's the only thing that scares me. I hope he's available, and I hope he's a starter for USA in a few years.
And we have to keep in mind age. He's 29 right now. His game is athleticism dependent. I don't think you push back on that now. We'll have 4 years worth of miles on him, some deep playoff runs. I don't know if he's the starter, so I will change my pick slightly from the notes, and I'm going to have Anthony Edwards as my two guard starting for Team USA.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, and maybe, like, this can be our, like, in our podcast series, like, the first, like, diabolical or hot take or take that gets people upset. It gets the people going, right? That's what we want here. I think Donovan Mitchell is so much better than Anthony Edwards right now, and maybe that won't be the case in a few years, but I think Donovan Mitchell is so much better than Anthony Edwards right now that, like if we were making the Olympic teams now, like, you could make an argument that Anthony Edwards shouldn't even make the team over Mitchell and Booker. Maybe that's a hot take, but just I wanted to put it out there that there will be times on this podcast where I talk, I do reality checks on Anthony Edwards. It doesn't mean I hate the man. It doesn't mean I want him to fail. It doesn't mean when he steps on the court for Team USA, I'll be rooting against him. It just means we got to do some reality checks. And to me, like, before we start saying Anthony Edwards is the best shooting guard in the NBA, I got to see it first, and that hasn't happened yet. So I'm just say that.
You didn't see it 2 years ago, Western Conference Finals? Dragon, he went up against Denver, but I like a lot of things about his game. His defensive intensity, obviously his athleticism is off the charts. I like that he actually got some run, and he was able to kind of call it job shadow underneath Kevin Durant and LeBron James and being bad atmosphere and seeing what a gold medal is and what it takes to win that. I like all those things. So that matters to me. I also think comparing Donovan Mitchell, that has, which we'll agree on, probably one of the more talented teams in the NBA with one of the better coaches in the NBA, to what Anthony Edwards is expected to do on a team that I don't think is a great
personnel fit, I think they're asked to do a lot of different things. So it would be unfair to compare them apples to apples. But you have Donovan Mitchell as your 2. I have Anthony Edwards. And then I think we're pretty much aligned on our 3 and our 4. It's Cooper Flagg and Jason Tatum. There's not going to be any pushback from either of us here. Both of these, coincidentally, Dookies are you're flip-flopping 3 and 4. Tatum's still young. He'll be healthy coming off that Achilles. He will be a staple, if not the face of Team USA by the time 2028 rolls around. So there's not much pushback there. Anything when it comes to Flagg or Tatum before we get to the?
I mean, I know for a fact that we have viewers that think Cooper Flagg is a bust because of his first 10 games. I'm gonna just say this. I'm more confident that Cooper Flagg will be a consensus top 5 player in the NBA in a few years. I think that is a more likely outcome than Cooper Flagg being a bust. So I also think like Tatum will be completely fine. He is, Bobby's had an Achilles injury, so he feels the pain that Jason Tatum is going through right now. But I also know that Tatum has great care in Boston. I feel very prideful of the fact that athletes in Massachusetts, even though I'm not a Celtics fan, like athletes in Massachusetts, their recovery timelines are often just built different. So I'm fully confident that Tatum will not just be healthy soon enough, but he will still be a top 10 player in the NBA and hopefully in 3 years' time. So yeah, I'm aligned with you on this one.
Okay. My starting 5 is a little mishmashy because it really depends. And I went back and looked at his line. Played really dictated kind of who they started. Steve Kerr was pretty flexible like that. When you're playing international ball, you're going to see a lot of traditional basketball that we're not used to here. It looks a lot different than what we're watching in the NBA. So being mindful of that when you're building out a roster, you need to build a big roster. You need to be able to play small. I think when they played Serbia, they went small. They didn't go Embiid. Let's be honest with ourselves. Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, LeBron James are going to be on their years. They're not. Maybe LeBron James will be an assistant coach, but he's not going to be on the team. I do think you need some size, and I think true American centers, are going to be tough to come by. Obviously, somebody can blow us out of the water in a couple of years. I accidentally left out Evan Mobley. He would probably be who I start at my 5. I know who you're coming with next, Ahan. But I would probably start it out with Evan Mobley as my 5. Keeping each in mind, but have a sturdy, big body guy who can eat up the paint and protect the rim, keeping in mind you can swipe above the cylinder in international ball. So my 5th guy would be Evan Mobley in this scenario.
I'll say this. I think one of the reasons it was such a good idea to talk about the Olympics is the transition from talking about Wemby, right, into going into the Olympics. There's a very high chance that going into the Olympics in 2028, Wemby will be the consensus best player in the NBA. Every coach in the world who has a chance to play against Wemby, their number one priority will be how can we stop Wemby. And on an Olympic team for France, where they might have a lot of other like elite, top 50 players in the world on their team, and given that we're losing Kevin Durant, we're losing Steph Curry, we're losing LeBron James, there is a high chance that USA will be, I still think USA will be the favorite, obviously, but there's a high chance USA will be the smallest favorite, or the smallest gap between first and second favorite in France that we've ever seen, because France is going to be so good. But I am more confident with this 2028 USA team than I am with any version of USA with Steve Kerr coaching. So I'll say that by saying, we finally have the best coach in the NBA coaching Team USA in 2028, and Eric Spoelstra. And if you talk about what you need to stop the other European bigs, that's exactly why I don't think it's Mobley. There's a reason that if you ask every player in the NBA who the best defender is, they all have the same answer, which is not the answer that you ask, that the media will have, that the fans will have. They say it's Bam Adebayo, and they all say that Bam Adebayo is the toughest because he can guard 1 through 5. you don't, even if in 3 years' time Evan Mobley is a better scorer than Bam, which that can be a separate debate because I think Bam is just as good of an offensive player as Mobley these days. Now that he's shooting the three, even if Evan Mobley is a better offensive player than Bam, what USA needs is someone who can not just switch 1 through 5, but also someone who, if you need to guard Wemby one-on-one and somewhat contain him, if you need to guard a Nikola Jokic one-on-one and somewhat contain him, there's only one guy in the NBA that's proven that they can somewhat stop these guys. He's held Giannis to many duds in the playoffs. He's held Jokic to some scoring duds. He's held Wemby, granted Wemby's very early in his career, but he's held Wemby to some pretty bad games. It's Bam Adebayo. So I don't see how the starting center for Team USA is not Bam Adebayo. But yes, Evan Mobley and Bam are probably going to be the two best centers for Team USA available. And I hope Evan Mobley still has that 3 ball because we're going to need it in 2028.
Yeah. No, I see. It's fair enough. I'm curious with his age. Maybe Spo, the head coach, will probably put him over the edge and he'll end up playing. But as long as they have a falling out, Bam will be on the squad. And he could be a guy that we see only start in that France game. He may not. I mean, when they played Joker, they didn't go with Joel Embiid. So it really may be matchup dependent who we're talking about. I love the bench. I love the other guys. Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero. You're going to check on the squad because you're playing a Victor Wembanyama. I love the idea that some other guys that I mentioned kind of the segue into this that got me thinking about Team USA. Cameron Boozer, another Dookie, and the kid from BYU, AJ Dybonsa, who I'm hearing Bill Simmons the other day said he's the best guard prospect since Vince Carter and Kobe Bryant. That means something. So and he looks like a grown ass man. These guys, there's freshmen out there that look like they look the part. They said AJ Dybonsa could have been NBA. So these are guys who I think we could see in 4 years. If they're coming in the NBA next year, and depending how effective they are immediately, by year 3 or year 4, now we're talking about guys like, who's in year 4 right now? Paolo. So like year 5, I think he's in. So we're in that range already with a guy like Paolo Banchero. So I love what this bench could be. I do think they lack size. I do think they lack like a big there's no AD. There's probably going to be AD. We didn't talk. Anthony Davis not going to be on the 2028 squad. So they're going to run into some trouble when they're playing the bigger, the Frances of the world. And if it's just Bam, Chet, and Evan Mobley, they're going to have a problem in the paint. So.
And there's a reason I'm so glad it's not Steve Kerr running these guys, because I would go to war for Eric Spoelstra if Eric Spoelstra were to go out with this USA team with a bunch of people that we'd never heard of. I'd still trust him to go win gold for us. So I don't know how they're going to defend those bigs, but maybe Eric Spoelstra does. Yeah, I also, like, on my bench, I was thinking about who's going to come off the bench. It's really the guards where we are blessed and we have many good options, because wings and bigs, like you said, like, I don't see how it's not just some combination of Bam, Evan Mobley, and Chet Holmgren. I don't know who else could possibly contend for that center spot, and hopefully those 3 are healthy. But then, yeah, like wings, Jalen Williams, he might have multiple championships, by the time we get to 2028, and the respect he'll get for having those multiple championships, if that happens, like, that's going to play a big part into making the Olympic team. And also, like, in his first NBA Finals, he looked like he could be a number 1 option in for a lot of people. Like, what he did, granted, he was the number 2 option. Shea was getting the best defensive attention, but what he did in the finals last year, to me, was like, is going to end up being like one of the more underrated performances by a number 2 in finals history. He was so good. And then, like, guards wise, it's kind of crazy to think, like, Cade to me is like in contention for best point guard in the East right now. And I don't have him listed on my bench right now, just because I think Anthony Edwards, obviously, like, he's going to get the respect for what he can do. The fact that he was on the Olympic team and got some experience, playing in it. He wasn't super successful when he played, but he still did play, and that's valuable experience. And also, like, Devin Booker has come through for an Olympic team, like that means something. The fact that he's been in that setting, the fact that he found success, the fact that a lot of the USA droughts that happened, these recent Olympics, Devin Booker was a big reason USA, held off those droughts and stayed in the game. And LeBron still talks about like Devin Booker was the reason we stayed in the games that we were down, right? And were able to pull off a couple of comebacks. So I have Devin Booker rounding it out. It's crazy to think like Brunson's going to be older by then. That's not as surprising, but to me, leaving Cade out was the most painful.
Yeah. No, man, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. USA basketball, the talent level is I mean, with the rest of the world is getting up there. Why don't we pivot to today's and wrap this? Put a nice bow on our first episode. Let's talk about finals predictions. We're 10, anywhere from 9 to 11 games in. We've seen it, not a huge sample size, but 1/8 of the season. I'll kick it off to you. You seem to predict. I don't think anything would have swayed it 10 games in. But tell me who you had, and if there's anyone that you might think peeks their head in there early on.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing my pregame predictions and our graphic designer was making the finals predictions, I was like, I'm not trying to be edgy, right? But I genuinely think that it is so hard to repeat in the NBA. And, there's conspiracy theories on why teams have such a hard time repeating, whether it be officiating or whatnot. But conspiracies aside, right? Like, it's hard to stay healthy for a full playoff run especially if you're in a position like OKC where so many players are out early in the season. It's going to be super hard for them to keep it up the whole season. The fact that Shea is doing what he's doing, and I think they're 11 games into the season at this time, and he has 10 30-point games, which, like, that's great that what we're witnessing modern day Kobe Bryant. Like, it's a blessing to watch that. But also, like, he is gassed and he is putting a huge toll on his body just to make sure that OKC continues winning these games and tries to get the 1 seed again in the regular season. That's going to take a toll on his body. And if Jalen Williams will take some time to not just be back, but also be to the level that he was last season. But also there's other injuries on this OKC team, which concern me, not for now, but for their chances of being fully healthy in the playoffs. And like I said, like, if a Spurs upset them, I wouldn't be surprised. If the Warriors upset them, I wouldn't be surprised, because we know that Jimmy and Steph and Draymond can choose the playoffs to play their best basketball. If the Lakers upset them, I also wouldn't be surprised, because I think they'll be aggressive at the trade deadline. But for now, I'm going to put OKC. I put OKC as my preseason prediction. I'm morally obligated to stick with it, considering I'm a big sample size guy. And I'm just changing that prediction before the All-Star break just doesn't sit right with me, because I do think they are, when healthy, by far the best team in the West. So I'm going to put OKC in the West. And then in the East, I think we're going to mostly agree on this. I think despite their loss to my Heat last night, I still think they're the best roster as of today, and it's Cleveland. I think there's so much better than last season, not just because, like, I see Mobley getting even better, but also I made an offseason video on offseason acquisitions for the NBA, and I mentioned both Lonzo and Larry Nance as guys that could be super useful in a playoff run. And it's not that I'm living in 2017 and I think Lonzo is going to, be an all-star like player in the playoffs. No, but it's the dead minutes, when Donovan Mitchell is off the court, when Darius Garland's off the court. Like, I was not super encouraged, as from the Cavs side, seeing Ty Jerome be, having to rely on him being a sixth man of the year level player for them to survive against a team like the Pacers. And indeed, like, his stinkers cost them in that series. I think Lonzo being a playmaker and Larry Nance being so experienced on both sides of the floor is super helpful. And also, we're going to talk more about the other players on the Cavs, but almost everybody seems improved early in the season. So I still think they're the best team in the East. So I'll say OKC versus Cleveland still.
Yeah, no, we dead nuts agree on Cleveland. I went into the season wanting to see a couple things. Did Evan Mobley make another jump? Rome, he's and what I came away with, Sam Merrill, who I did not see coming, most efficient shooter in the NBA right now, found his role on this team, supplemented those Ty Jerome minutes almost seamlessly. I do like what Lonzo Ball brings as, assuming he stays healthy and he can start knocking down the three ball a little bit. I think he had 2 last night against Chicago. He brings a guy that they can have a nice second squad with, where he can play high-low man with Evan Mobley. We can give Darius 5 minutes to shine and let him play off the ball. If it's just Mitchell and Lonzo, they have this third guard that can complement those other 3 big pieces. And if they space the minutes properly, I think you could set yourself up. You could set yourself up for success. So Mobley, just some quick numbers for you guys: 15 field goal attempts per game, it's a career high. 21.1 points per game, career high. 5 3-point attempts per game on 34% shooting. 4.3 assists per game. These are career highs. I like the jump that Mobley made. They're going to need to do that. It's important to keep in mind, this is the squad for better or for worse. They're at the second apron. They're the only team in the league at the second apron. There's no moves for them to make at the deadline. And I think it kind of works in their favor. They got embarrassed last season, so they come back whole. They bring in Alonzo, and they have Kenny Atkinson. I really like this team coming out of the East. I think losing for them, you see it a lot in the NFL, where you have that team that make a jump, they bounce in the first round. That's good for them. I think it's good for the Cavs. See how they do in the NBA Cup. And then my other team is the second team in the West. It's the Denver Nuggets. Best bench Jokic ever played with in his career, and we haven't even seen the best of Cam Johnson yet. He's shooting 23% from 3-point. That's an aberration. That's not a season-long stat for him. So he's going to get better. I think Christian Braun, jump is the wrong word, but efficiency and understanding your role is a better way to put it. And he's going to be a guy they're going to throw at it and down. I like Tim Hardaway Jr. I like they brought back Bruce Brown. So I think this Denver team is going to be a real tough out in the 7-game series. I mean, I think Jokic and them, they went 7 games last year against Oklahoma City, and he had nowhere near the talent around him that he does now. I mean, I think Peyton Watson was playing huge minutes. He's still playing some minutes now, but they have other guys in different combinations they can throw out there. So Denver-Cleveland is plus 1533 as your finals Madden full, plus 15 on DraftKings. So more or less 15-14 to 1 for both of these teams. Something I look at is your 5-man lineups. Who's the best 5-man lineups in terms of plus minus, total net rating, total points scored? The top 2 5-man lineups in the NBA right now are Denver and Cleveland, and they have 2 of the top 7, each of them. So they have a 5-man lineup, a 5-man lineup, a 5-man lineup, and a 5-man lineup as the best 5-man lineups in the top 7. So these are my top 2 teams, bar injury. I think it'll be interesting to see what the Lakers can do at the deadline. What's LeBron James' role going to look like coming back? I think they need 3-point shooting. That's obvious. You can't really expect much from LaRavia every single night in the 3-point context. Early returns on DeAndre Ayton and Marcus Smart are huge. They look the part. They're making those small. Marcus Smart is making small plays that affect winning. They're not going to show up in the box score, but he looks better version of him last year. Early returns. I'm curious what role we get from LeBron James. Is he going to fit around what Reeves and Luka is doing? I don't think he's going to pout. I don't think he's going to come off the bench. That's not going to happen. But what move do they have to make, and how does it look where LeBron comes in and says, this is a shot for me to win a ring, and for me to do that, I have to do X. And what that X is, we don't know yet, but it's not going to look like it's looked for the last 5 years with him in LA.
I have no idea if we've ever talked about how I feel about the Nuggets, or if you going into the show, like, did you know what my takes about the Nuggets were entering the season?
I don't. I did not. Sorry, I
Okay.
should have been a better co-host and read into you more.
No, this is great because I mean, it's not looking great in the first 10 games of the season, but one of my biggest futures of the season were the under on Denver's win total in the regular season. And I will say this. I will say they have one of the highest playoff floors in the NBA just because they have that trio that's been to the playoffs so many times, that's proven they are playoff performers in Jokic, Jamal, and Aaron Gordon. I faded them last year when they played the Clippers, and going back and looking, like everyone talks about how. Can you hear me?
No, I was saying me too. I faded. I took the Clippers in that series too.
You lagged for a second again, so I had no idea. Anyway, I faded them last year against the Clippers. I thought the Clippers would win that series. Then they win that series in 7 games. Everyone talks about how they almost beat the Thunder. Nobody talks about how they almost lost to the Clippers. And if Russell Westbrook doesn't shoot, I believe it was 50% from 3 in that series. If Russell Westbrook doesn't shoot that well, the Nuggets not only lose that series, but probably lose it in Game 6 before they committed that Game 7 murder, right? To me, like, I think this Denver team, yes, I believe that Michael Porter Jr. to Cameron Johnson is an upgrade, despite the cold shooting from Cam Johnson. And by the way, if you're watching this, it might be after the game's already happened, but I'm on Cameron Johnson's over on threes tonight. But I do think that is an upgrade. But I also think that the theory that their bench is so much better than it was last year, that is, if not false, it's at least overblown, because I actually don't think that their bench is that much better, if at all. I think Russell Westbrook was statistically one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA last year. And yes, like when he was in his prime, I would hate on Russell Westbrook. I always thought that he was a quote unquote overrated MVP. He goes and actually makes teams worse after that. And it became the cool thing to hate on Russ, but I was the innovator of it. All jokes aside, though, like Russell Westbrook was objectively a good bench asset last year. And then in the playoffs, he saves them by shooting the lights out of the ball in the first round, then goes back to earth in the second round against OKC, which is pretty funny. But I also am not a believer in Bruce Brown. Like his offensive game infuriates me. And maybe this is the emotional side of me talking, and maybe I will calm down and think otherwise in a few months. But Bruce Brown's offensive game infuriates me. And Peyton Watson is a great defender. Like, I love watching him play defense. But he's been the same offensive player the last 3, his entire early NBA career so far. So I don't know what we're going to get from him. I also think Valanciunas and Tim Hardaway are defensive targets, and the non-Jokic minutes in the playoffs, I think, are going to be absolutely brutal. So I don't see Denver having that final ceiling. I still think that my under on their regular season wins, and I went the regular season wins route because playoffs, it's a whole different story. They have playoff performers. I do still think that my under on their wins line has serious life, because at some point they're going to expose the fact that this bench is not actually that good. And maybe ending episode 1 on that note, on that disagreement, is what we should do, because on episode 2, we'll talk about these quote unquote fringe teams, or what to do with the Lakers at the deadline, et cetera, et cetera. I want to talk about the Heat so bad, but we'll save that for episode 2. I know you want to counter with your Nuggets arguments and Lakers talk as well in episode 2. But Bobby, I'm so excited for the rest of the season. It was a pleasure, despite the laggy version of you. It's been a pleasure kicking off this podcast.
We're gonna get that fixed next week. I'm gonna order a cord and hardline right into my router, so it's not gonna be this laggy. It will be, once I get rid of the lag, it will be much more artified so that we cover each other. One thing I didn't add about the Denver Nuggets is Jamal Murray just looks like playoff Jamal Murray in the regular season, which we haven't done yet. So worth mentioning there. Nah, man, this is going to be fun. Thank you guys for who's watching. Maybe we'll drop. I know people in there are in the chat are throwing a couple plays in for the night. I know this is going to get posted a day late, but maybe if you're tuning in, we'll drop. I know Ahan dropped some Cam Johnson threes tonight. Maybe we'll drop a couple Easter eggs in there for those watching. But thank you for tuning, and we'll keep it going.
And if you are watching in stream, stick around. Every Tuesday, we're going to do this at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. The games are probably going to start at 7:10 or 7:40 p.m. Eastern time every night. So I'm going to stay, let Bobby go and actually live his life with a family, and let him live his life. And I'll stay on stream to talk about the NBA bets that I have going, and perhaps adding more. If you want all our content, all our betting content, etc., Bobby is not just on the podcast, but he's going to be adding his own content to the Discord. We'll announce more on that very soon. And he's going to be not just a podcaster, but a full-on content creator for us throughout the entirety of the NBA season. We're super excited to see that. Go check that out in the Discord. But until then, we'll see you in episode 2 on Tuesday next week for Above the Break.